Hello, everybody. This is Sandra Lee with a Tuning Up to Thrive interview. I have my wonderful friend, Susan Crossman, with me today. She is a book coach and editor, and we have a wonderful topic. She is going to talk about, do you want to write a book? And maybe you've been wanting to write a book for a long time, but not been sure what it takes. She is an expert at assisting people in getting to that point, to publishing. So, thank you for being here, Susan. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the question, Sandra. It's delightful to be here. I really appreciate the chance to talk about my favorite subject, which is book writing and books. That's the world that I live in, and certainly the world that I've been immersed in for quite a long time. I have a background as a writer. From the time I was just a little girl, all I wanted to do was be a writer. And I can remember climbing up into the apple tree in my backyard, and I would drag a tablet of paper with me and a pencil. And I would just sit up there and I would write and write and write and write. And fortunately, none of the things that I wrote have survived to this day because who knows what a 7-year-old is thinking about or doing. I'm sure it was very sweet, but I did turn that passion into a career and worked as a journalist right out of university. I got a political science degree thinking, well, that's what journalists need. And at the time, all I could really imagine as a career as a writer was journalism. And I knew that journalists wrote. And so that's where I set my sail and ended up working in daily news for a number of years. And after that, I made the leap to government communications, where I did a lot more. I mean, journalism is really interesting because you're writing articles about people all the time and events that are happening in your community. And then with government communications, the turn of the lens was really about writing with a particular focus. And so a lot of that was, of course, about supporting the government's policies. But I learned how to write press releases and speeches and briefing papers for the government's usage. And from there, I ended up going to a marketing agency, which was a big, steep learning curve for me at the time, which is learning how to use the language of influence in your writing. So that was just, the most exciting thing I could imagine, was to be able to make a living as a writer. And really, I had another dream, though, and that's the dream that many of my clients, well, I guess all of my clients share, which is the dream of becoming a published author. And I really dreamt about that for a really long time, until my husband at the time finally said, you've been talking about writing a book for a long time. What's stopping you? And that's when I
Yes,
started my first book.
let's
Yeah.
focus on that because there's a
Okay.
lot of people out there in that place wanting but not doing. So tell us about how you support people in that.
Well, for sure. Thank you for that question. Um, can I share some statistics? Would that be okay, Sandra? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we know that about 80% of the population would like to write a book someday, which is a lot of people. And out of that 80%, about 40% actually start. So they get up a little momentum and they sit down and they open their Word file or their journal book or whatever it is, and they start to write their book. But of the 40% that start, only 2% actually finish writing a book manuscript. And then from the 2% who finish a manuscript, only 13% go on to get published. So there's a huge attrition rate. And I think there are probably really three reasons for that. There's the inner game. There's a lot of self-doubt that quite often goes along with writing a book. Imposter syndrome. Who am I to write a book? And of course, I struggled with that, even though I was a very accomplished professional writer. To write a book was, I didn't know how to do that. So, and who was going to read that book anyway? There's that inner game that goes on that helps people stop writing their book. And then there's the issue of skill set. A lot of people have spent their lives becoming brilliant at what they do, but they haven't been investing in writing training. And so they feel a little insecure about their ability to write and write well. And also a book is a big project. Well, how do you do that? How do you write a book? That seems quite complex, and it is actually quite a complex project. And then finally, I think that attrition rate is also due to the fact that um, all of us have very busy lives. I work with entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are busy, particularly coaches. I work with people who really want to help people live better lives somehow and create more harmony in the world. And that's often goes along with a really busy life with family and the act of running your business. And often people have charitable commitments. So how do you create the time to write a book? It does take time to do that. So I help people bring all of those issues together in one place to take a look at what could be standing in the way of getting that book finished and published. And we problem solve. We figure out how for you can we make that happen.
Being someone who does energy healing and supporting people in doing the things they want to accomplish, um, that they've been stopping themselves from doing. Is doing healing work something that you recommend for people who want to be authors but are in these places of coming up against those blocks?
Absolutely. Sandra, you've just hit on one of my favorite topics, which is healing work and energy work. I've come to appreciate the power of energy work in my own life. I've had a lot of blocks myself. In fact, it took me 13 years to write my first book. And I think if I had known energy healers at the time who could support me in whatever I was going through, I think that would have taken a lot less time, and that book could have come out to support the people it was here to support a lot faster. But energy work is highly recommended. And there are so many modalities that are available to make of us the pure funnel through which that book can flow. In my model of the world, the book already exists. It already has an energy frequency. And as we are tuning into that book, quite often we have internal blocks that are preventing the book from flowing through us from the upper dimensions where it is already existing through to the third dimensional reality that book needs to be in order for our ideal readers to access it and access the wisdom that's flowing through us. So absolutely, energy work, healing work. Oh boy, what a powerful skill set to add to your writing skill set.
You know, one of the things that I do is I work with the energy blocks that happen when I'm confused, or I don't know, or I don't know how, or I don't want to be seen, or people aren't going to like me. All those kinds of thoughts result in a blockage in the flow of energy. And for writing to happen, I think of writing as being an expressive. So even though writing, I'm not actually speaking, that's still a throat chakra, a communication energy, and issues with being seen and how I feel about myself can block that expression. So, this is a group of people I haven't really thought about working with before, but I'm sure that there's tremendous benefit that people can receive.
Oh, well, you and I should talk, Sandra Lee, because that is a really big part of becoming that clear channel through which the book can flow. And so, yeah, I think that's extremely powerful work. If anybody is having some blocks with getting their book done, contact Sandra Lee, because I've seen that in a lot of my clients. Like, a lot of my clients are energy workers as well. So they have they have their own modalities that they use to clear themselves, but not everybody is an energy worker. And if you are working on a book, contact Sandra Lee and just say, listen, I'm not sure why it's taken me 3 years so far to get started on writing my book. Maybe it's not just the physical part of it. Maybe there's something else going on that I need to look into. Great idea.
Are there different types of books that you work with authors on? And tell us a little bit about the process of how to get started in working with you to write a book.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. I focus primarily on people who are writing a nonfiction book to support a business and a mission. Usually those two go together. So, for example, a lot of coaches, they are really passionate about the work that they're doing with people. And they also recognize they've been put here on the planet with that skill set and that approach to life and its challenges, for a purpose, to help people become more aligned with who they are and who they're here to be. And so those books are really powerful books. They're the books that are going to help people unlock the secrets that they have been hanging on to that are stopping them from getting where they need to go. So it's primarily nonfiction books, a lot of personal development, spiritual development. I work with a lot of people who are writing memoirs. So a lot of the people that I work with have been through some pretty perceptively traumatic experiences. And often they found their way to energy work actually to help them um, manage their journey through the trauma and to find a way through to the other side where they are living fulfilling and thriving lives. That energy work can do that for us. And my clients typically know that there's something more available to us, and they want to help put that at the service of their readers. So I do work with people who are working in the fiction area as well. I've written 5 books myself. I'm traditionally published. And so I've written a novel and a collection of short stories, and I've also written 3 nonfiction books. So I understand the complexities of both of those quite well. But most of my clients are working on nonfiction. And in terms of starting, Sandra, it is actually so complex to start writing a book that I've created a whole course around starting to write your book. We live in a world where a lot of outside pressure is saying, oh, well, you should be able to write your book in a week or a month. Well, that's how hard can it be to write a book? It's just, you reduce it to a formula and just follow the formula. And while that's true at some level, there is a certain amount of formula that can support us to writing our book. In reality, it is that internal work that can help stop us from making the forward progress that we want to make on the book. And the other piece of that is there's this little thing called divine timing. And I find with my clients particularly, they're very tuned into allowing their guidance to filter through them to support them in the writing of their books. And you can't always just demand that the universe help you right now because I'm sitting down to write my book. So we work with strategies to facilitate the divine guidance that we know is available to us with the practical skill set that is actually an important part of writing the book. So in terms of starting, I would recommend, if anybody's sitting there thinking they would like to write a book, you really connect to why you want to do that, because your why drives just about everything in book writing. It drives the kind of book that you're writing. It will determine how you're presenting your information to your readers, even what kind of publishing model do you want to choose. There are 4 different publishing models available today. So which one is the best one for what you want to achieve with your book? Because all of those publishing models have different strengths and weaknesses. So we want to match the publishing model with what you're trying to achieve, which goes back to why are you doing this? So we start with why. And then the next step would be, well, what is it you want to share with your readers? And I often ask my clients to answer this question. If the whole world were gathered in your living room, what would you want them to know? And if you can answer that question, then you can build your entire book around what do you want people to know. And there's more to it than that. Writing a book is actually quite complex. It's really interesting though, and almost anybody can do it. I haven't met anyone who yet that I've worked with who can't write a book. Even if you think you're not a very strong writer, there are strategies we can employ.
So, you out there watching this video, do you get the value of having a coach to work with? I think we've all heard of the person who's writing the book on their own and they haven't contacted anybody about it. They're doing it completely alone, and then they have this manuscript that they want to pass on. My recommendation is to contact someone like Susan before you get started. She said she's got a program for how to get started. So, Susan, would you tell us a little bit more about how people can get started with you? And then tell us if you've got a gift for them.
For sure. I love giving gifts. Thank you for that question, Sandra. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the easiest way for people to get started working with me is to just shoot me an email at susan@crossmancommunications.com, and let's have a conversation about where you are and what do you want to achieve, and maybe I can help you with some of that. I would It would be an honor to be able to do that. And I have a free gift, which is called The Writer's Guide to Writing a Transformational Nonfiction Book. It's a text-based program for working through getting started writing your book and figuring out what's going in it. And it is a great starting point, I think, as well for anyone who would like to map out what that book experience is going to be. And you're more than welcome to access that. It's free of charge, and it's really based on what I've learned over the decades now of writing and writing books.
Thank you, Susan. So, all the information about how to connect with Susan and get her gift is going to be in the comments below the video. So, before we leave, Susan, do you have a final point that you want people to take away? Something you want them to remember about hearing this conversation with you?
Well, thank you for that question, Sandra, too. Sure. You know what? As I mentioned earlier, our books have an energetic frequency. And I believe they start bothering us a long time before we're quite ready to bring them into reality, to write them. So if you've been feeling that book tapping you on the shoulder, then and it some people they feel that tap for 4 or 5 years, 20 years even before they're really ready to to take the hint and start writing the book. So if you have been feeling your book nudging you, then I invite you to lean in. That's a message from the divine saying, there's a purpose for you here in book writing, and you are here to serve people. So a book is an act of service, and I invite you to really lean into that and take that seriously and start that book. If you haven't already, believe in yourself, believe in the alignment between the urge to write the book and the importance of you actually doing that. You're here for a reason, and that book could well be an important part of it.
I love that message, Susan. Listen to the tap on the shoulder,
Mm.
that little voice, and it's like, oh, you should write that book. When are you going to do it?
Yes, do it. Just
Yes,
say yes.
yes, just say yes. And, just having that call with Susan, having that initial inquiry doesn't commit you to
Mm,
actually doing it yet. It's just the first step, and there may be
right.
another step, and who knows what the timing is going to be. But if you never start the conversation, it's not ever going to happen. So,
Exactly.
for you out there listening, thank you so much. And definitely reach out and connect with Susan. And hey, if you are one of those people who has those emotional stuff from the past, that you want healing for, then let me know because that's something that I can do. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching this interview.